There we go. So today we're joined by Amber Anderson, who's the director curator of the Estevan Art Gallery and Museum, and Sandy Moore, who's the curator of the Art Gallery of Regina. And they did presentations for us for our network program for the Network Knowledge Exchange. So we have a network of several networks, 11 that are kind of around the province, and every spring and fall we meet with them. And every spring, generally, we deliver some sort of professional development opportunity called the Network Knowledge Exchange. Of course, usually prior to pandemic, in the before times, these were usually opportunities that were delivered in person. And of course, since last spring, we've had to pivot to virtual. And so this year, we talked to 3 different folks, Amber and Sandy being 2 of them, to talk about creative approaches to curation during a pandemic. And we have another person coming in here. One of the things that that Sarah and I identified that was maybe lacking from the virtual presentation was the opportunity to ask the presenters themselves some questions about their presentations. And so that is what we have today. So I'm going to put some links in the chat after I'm done yapping here to the presentations that were pre-recorded for the Network Knowledge Exchange about Amber and Sandy's projects. And with that, I would like to pass it over to you guys to take the floor here. And Sarah as well. Thank you.
So
you can go for it, Amber.
Sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Amber Anderson, and I am the director curator at the Estevan Art Gallery and Museum. So I'm situated in Treaties 4 and 2, and I am uniquely just 10 minutes from the American border. So I'm kind of on the very edge of Saskatchewan, the southeast. And so obviously 2020 marked a very fundamentally different time for everybody in the world. So when we were faced with the idea, when we were obviously all closed, when we were mandated to be closed, and that provided challenges. It also provided opportunities. So for us, in terms of thinking, how do we still get artwork out there? And I'm using the term artwork, but I think it's really interchangeable here for the people who are with museums, more traditional museums, in terms of having access to your collection, whatever that might be. And so we developed a project, and it was called Inside Out, Inside and or Out. And the purpose of this was to actually put artworks outdoors and to have a play on what would normally be inside, putting it outside, having kind of an inside scoop outside. So we worked actually with a regional park, Woodlawn Regional Park. They were a partnership that we already had in place, but I just had approached them and said, I have these plexi-lidded plinths. And for people that are like, what is a plinth? It's just basically a pedestal that you can put a lid over top and secure it. And so I had approached, because at this time too, our curatorial schedules were all over the map. Right, Sandy's shaking her head. You know, girl, the pain is real. So I approached people, and how I picked people was they all were very fortunate to have works that were kind of dealing with some form of nature already. But I had selected people that had already had to be like bumped or moved. So it was an opportunity to provide them opportunity and to provide some sort of artist fee in the meantime. So I actually paid everyone artist fees, so Carfax artist fees. And I included Belinda Harrow, Regan Lanning, Monique Martin, and Zoe Schneider. Now, with that being said, I also then had solos with all these people. So it was an even further play on Inside Out, because they were outside, then they were inside. And we just had them in the park, and then how we made it activated. I use this term activated because how are we getting people excited about this? How are we getting the news out? Is we attached it to a scavenger hunt that was around the city. So it was with pre-existing sculptures, murals, and then we incorporated also the artworks that were in this outdoor exhibition. Then we went to the business community and said, will you support this by offering a prize for the scavenger hunt? Because nothing makes people want to scavenger more than a sweet hot prize. And the business community it was really exciting because we actually had one business who was like, I actually want to have a piece in my business. So we actually got to put a piece from our collection actually in that business. But we had people come forward and give us gift certificates. I think we had like 15 prizes. So the idea was that you went and took a selfie by the artwork, and every time you took a selfie, you were entered in. So, I mean, we had 400 entries into this thing. So, right. So it was a really great way. And I did have to laugh because they were now a year after this. And there was people that were nominated for kind of like Women of the Year. It's kind of something that exists a lot in the rural. And there was 2 or 3 people that used selfies that were from like so I could be like, oh, that's you and Belinda Harrow. That's you and Monique Martin. Because they use these as their pictures. So it's a nice lasting impact. But it was a really great way to offer something to the community in a time where families were really looking for something to do because they couldn't do any kind of travel. They really couldn't leave the area. And I specifically picked Woodlawn. I already had a partnership with them, but they have campgrounds. They have a golf course. They have kayaking, an outdoor physical gym. So they're a location that people are flocking to anyways. So this was something that I had done in 2010, and then I continued it, and I did a winter version actually with Chantal Schultz. So if you guys actually watch these amazing videos that we did, you'll get to see Chantal talk about her project. And the nice thing with that is that it actually got picked up. We were picked up on CBC. So that was a nice moment for us to have that. So I said, I don't know if I'm at my 5 or 7 minutes. I've absolutely I haven't had a sense of time since 2020. So this is not getting better. So that's just kind of a gist of my project. I didn't include any images. They're beautiful works. You should watch this video because we actually have a slideshow on it. So I'm just really going to push this video. But I will now hand over the talking stick to Sandy. And then I look forward to the questions later on.
Thanks, Amber. I was really excited to hear about your project, and because it was sort of inspiring. Last June, we were part of a big group discussion where we were, everyone was talking about digital burnout, and so I was really excited to hear that you were doing this outdoor IRL programming. And because my background is from media arts, maybe I'm always just a little bit like excited by technology. So the Art Gallery of Regina, as many galleries were, we were closed down from March until August last year. And I was really eager to find ways that weren't like, holding. My colleague Jennifer McRory said something very funny and true recently. She said, the days when we could hold up our iPhone in the gallery and do a Facebook live stream, those are done. Even that sort of thing, it can become fatiguing, both for us as staff and, for our audiences. And I was really interested in, as Amber said, like making sure I was paying artists fees, and also not asking artists to do something more. So our project was called Moving Pictures, and it used augmented reality. So if you know about Pokemon Go, for example, that's a great example of augmented reality, where an animation or a 3D object, computer generated model is laid over a view of the real world through a digital interface like your smartphone. And so our project was like that, and I just wanted to use it to showcase videos by artists and pre-existing videos. So that's what we did, and if it's okay, I'd like to share my screen and just show you a little bit about what our project was. Basically, we delivered our project, we delivered our project through posters that were put up in various public spaces all around the province. Oh, this is so strange. I just don't see my, It's weird. I don't see my slideshow app. That's strange. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And of course, I apologize. Everything is there. The menu bar was hidden also. Yeah, basically here's what it looks like using your phone to play the video through the poster. And the posters were put up through our partnership with the Organization of Saskatchewan Arts Councils all throughout Saskatchewan. And I think, can I play this video? Here, so you'll see what it looks like when you're looking through your phone. A short clip of one of the videos. I think this one as well. So those were just some of the examples of the 10 videos that we displayed in public places all across the province. And the most popular of which was viewed over 300 times. And we programmed in total 10 videos by artists, all under 5 minutes. And, we actually, I was lucky to be very successful at fundraising, and we kind of almost every month got another grant to enlarge the project or keep it going. So in the winter, instead of doing posters, in the summer, it was really exciting for us to get people outside using their ubiquitous technology that's in their pocket to bring these artworks to life while they're kind of wandering around, maybe on a walking trail or a parking lot or something like that. And we placed them in community newspapers across the province. So again, people could be sitting at, say, their kitchen table, reading the paper, pull out their phone, and again, make these videos come to life for themselves. So I was really excited at just ways of reaching people, having them encounter artworks almost by accident and have a kind of unexpected and maybe exciting experiences with art. That was really something that was important to me about this project, as well as presenting this kind of like multitude of Saskatchewan experiences. So not presenting a stereotypical Saskatchewan story, but stories that many people could see their own experiences reflected in all of these stories, and to build empathy, that we're not this monolithical culture, this one thing only, that there's multiple points of engagement. And also, I'll say one other thing, although, augmented reality, it sounds complicated, it was really easy both for us as an organization to make work, but also for viewers to make work. It's a free app, and you literally just point your phone at the poster and it plays the video for you. And part of this was inspired by, teaching at the university and noticing that my students, especially newcomer students, they don't have personal computers. They don't have the option to really connect to a lot of our digital programming that way. And so creating something that uses smartphone technology is actually much more accessible to a broader range of people. And sorry, speaking of that, I wanted to say, I'm also joining you from Treaty 4 territory in Regina, and I love Amber's programming, so I'm just so happy to be in the same forum as Amber.
No, it's great. Well, because we were one of the participants actually for Sandy's project. So we had this here as well. And I think it was interesting to see how it would unfold in different places, because we don't necessarily have, like, our parks are just like kind of big open air, like camping parks. So we don't have this kind of like the urban notion of like, you walk. So like we had to do it like, it was like, okay, I'm going to put this up in the mall. I'm going to put this up. And so like just seeing how that transformed in different communities, I think was really interesting. And obviously I love things that are engaging. I love things that are kind of outside actually of the confines of a traditional exhibition space. So 2020 kind of afforded, I think that's also yourself as well, from what I understand. So it kind of afforded us some opportunities to do a little bit of risk taking, and it felt like it was okay to do so.
Yeah, I really agree. I have been known to say more than once that, the pandemic has actually been a kind of opportunity for us as public institutions to examine the way we've always done things and to make change. And, part of this is recognizing that, even like our galleries that are free and, should be publicly accessible, there's still a lot of barriers for people to actually visit an art gallery, this institutional space that has a lot of expectation built up around it. And it's nice to try and think of ways of working outside the gallery walls and perhaps being more inclusive through that work.
Awesome. Thanks for those intros. Um, so I think now we can open it up if anybody here has any questions for Sandy or Amber. While you guys were talking, I can kick it off. I ended up having one question for Sandy. With the app that you were using for the VR or AR, were you able to know where your audience was viewing from? Like, say, for example, like, did you know how many views you got from Estevan or that sort of thing?
Oh, great question, Em. Yeah, so we used Artivive, which is an augmented reality platform based out of Austria. So we could see how many times a video and artwork had been viewed, and we could also see how many of those views were unique, but we couldn't see geographically where those views originated from. So that was, maybe a little bit disappointing in terms of that. Uh, yeah, and then when we did our ads in community newspapers where people could view the videos through the ad in the community newspaper, we basically placed a different artwork in each community. So depending on the uptake of those and when those views happened, we could kind of see what the viewership in each community was.
I love that you put it in the newspaper. I think that was really smart. I was writing it down because I might steal it. I'm like, this is such a brilliant way to like work with a multitude of just different formats and reaching different ages and different people. So that was really clever.
Yeah, we sort of had this awareness at a certain point that community newspapers, like everyone in that community reads that paper and they read it from cover to cover. And, because we wanted to, again, go beyond like this idea that Saskatchewan is two cities, Saskatoon and Regina, and reach other places in the province. Of course, we were thinking community newspapers, but I think that those papers play a much more central role in those smaller communities as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I will just kind of throw this out there too. Artivive was great to work with, a really easy platform to use. This year we are trying to do another, we're working towards another augmented reality project, working with shared spaces at the University of Saskatchewan. So some of you may know about shared spaces already. So their platform is like half built at the moment, but so there are some obstacles there. But the thing that I like about working with shared spaces is, our data, the artist's copywritten product is not on a server that's being managed in Europe, and who knows where their actual servers are. So to have something that's right here in Saskatchewan would make me feel maybe much more secure about respecting artists' moral rights to their artwork and it not being distributed without their knowledge.
Anyone has a question, please go for it.
Excellent. No one's going to say anything. I have one for you guys. Since now that you've done these projects and you've wrapped them up, is there anything that you've learned from it that if you're doing this again that you would do differently, like more tactics? I mean, Amber, you pointed out that advertising to rural newspapers is a great way to engage those communities. I mean, what have you learned that you would take to this project again if you were to do it again? Both of you guys, just for the record. So Amber, go first.
Okay. I think, something that we had done the first round, which I said, like, we kind of activated it by tying it to a scavenger hunt, by tying it to something to do with families, and with this idea that people could win a prize. So there was an incentivization to get out there and find these things. And I did that the one in the summer, but I didn't do that with the one in the winter. And I can tell you right now that was, I wish I had done something. And I think at the time, to be fair to me, I think we were going to try and tie it into like skating winter events and winter things, and then that actually was taken, like, it was it was a no-go for when we were planning this. But I will say, like, just depending on your community, and like, I think with Sandy, I was like, oh, I love this idea that you put in like, that would have been, to use her idea, that would have been a great way to activate this winter one, right? Like, come look at this, blah, blah, blah. We had worked with the paper too, where in the summer they had kind of done an editorial where it was like 101 things to do in Estevan. So I was like, yeah, we'll buy an ad space, because, like, once again, it was because these are the grandparents that are reading this newspaper that are going to haul these children in to do this scavenger hunt to look at this art. So if I was, and I am doing it again actually this summer, and I am tying it to a more historical lens this time. I'm working with a newcomer artist, but she's intrigued because we used to have a brick factory. We used to be there's like 3 top brick factories, and Estevan was one of them. So she is actually a ceramic artist. Ruth Langweiser is her name. And she actually wants to work with the clay that we actually still have in this area that actually made the bricks, to actually make works, to talk about that history. So I think getting on the bandwagon, what I might do a bit differently this time is like using some of that technology, probably more like QR, something to that effect. I think to do that as an activation as well, taking a little bit more of, if I was IRL, getting into maybe a little bit more of the digital side of things. So that's a couple of approaches that I would do differently.
Oh, this is Sandy. Yeah, moving pictures, in some ways it was such an incredible project because, as I mentioned, we managed to keep it going for so long, getting a little bit more funding as we went along, to add more artists, to pay artists fairly, to top up their artist fee as we extended the project. Sometimes with your funding comes some requirements. And one of the less satisfying aspects of this project was that we also did an on-demand screening that was available online through Vukavu, which is a Canadian art distributor who, like many organizations during the pandemic, they kind of pivoted from being aimed towards curators like me to preview digital artworks to being kind of a streaming platform for audiences. And because that wasn't their intention when they set up their platform, there's some friction where you need to log in to view the program. And it's free to log in, but it just, it's this extra added little bit of friction. So for our SAS Culture funding, they wanted us to have a national distribution plan, not just a provincial distribution plan. So we partnered with Vukavu, but it ended up being one, quite expensive for us, and 2, the numbers were quite small, especially when compared to the views through the free phone app. And Vukavu had kind of reported back to us that what they saw on their end was that people would go to the program, and then when they saw that they had to create an account, they would abandon it. So that would be, it's a tough thing, but I think that would be something that, I might, I don't know how to phrase it really. That was a sort of a difficult thing with our project, it was just a barrier to people experiencing the project through what should have been a really productive partnership, just because their platform was not set up for viewing audiences, really. The other thing that I would would have done differently, I think, or if we had the money, would have loved to have done, is to set up free Wi-Fi hotspots, so that people would not need to use their phone data, but would have the ability to have some free Wi-Fi to view the projects as well.
Go for it, Jennifer.
Thanks. Both really great projects, really amazing. And I was just thinking, Amber, so if I understand right, you had plinths, like covered plinths in various locations.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, did you have to worry about security? Like, did you have to worry about vandalism?
Oh yeah. I mean, this was, like this was artists really taking the risk with me, because I said, okay, I would love some of your art. I'm going to put it outside and there will be absolutely no security. And I hope that it doesn't get destroyed. So when I was talking to them about this being an artist fee, I said, potentially think of it almost like as in you're selling, like think of it as in you're selling me a piece that's going to be in a plexi. And if I can return it to you, I absolutely will. And if I can't, then think of it as kind of being sold, because in this park, there was absolutely it was there 24/7. People had access to it 24/7. And I think one of the, it's funny to me just because of the area I live in, but we had Zoe's piece and it was very, it had a very kind of extraterrestrial feel just because of like its shape. And I had put it into this location where it's just these shale, where they had done like shale mining, and it's just beautiful. It's very picturesque. It has this kind of alien, otherworldly feel, and I knew that was the work that she was working on. So I had put it out there, and the first night, because it was kind of a place where people ATV. So like they kind of had ATV'd around, I don't know, it was very Mad Maxy, and they kind of ATV'd around it. They had like retched off the plexi. They probably looked at it and then very cautiously put the plexi back on. Like the only reason we knew is because we would check on them every day. We would go, that was part of our daily, like go check on the art. And I was like, why is this crack here? And it's because, they obviously cracked it when they were taking it out. So I actually moved it to a different location, because I mean, obviously that was a bit of a scare, but it was one of these moments where people were just more curious than anything else, because I was I thought that they would like, there was so much risk with it. And I honestly will say we had it outdoors for like 2 months. And there were people that maybe tried a little bit of shenanigans, but to be honest, there was no work that was damaged. There was no work that was stolen. There was no, yeah, I think honestly, people were just happy to actually have it and have access to it, which I think really speaks volumes, because I honestly was like, anytime you put public art out, it's a very scary moment because there's so much opportunity for anything to happen to it.
Well, thanks. That's encouraging.
Yeah, thank you.
That made me think, the first thing that came into my mind when you said about the ATVers, if only you had one of those cameras.
I think that this
so
is
that you could see at each place, that would be kind of an extension of the exhibit, is to have one of those motion detector cameras.
Yeah.
That could kind of have a moment by moment every 5 minutes or whatever.
No, I agree.
How people were interacting with
that's
the
really
works. That's what came to my mind. And the other thing I wanted to say is a big congratulations to the Moose Jaw Art Gallery and Museum on their award. Just wanted to let you know we are very proud of you. You deserve it. I just can't say how much.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. Thanks so much. It's such an honor.
I think one of the things that I'm interested in talking about, and maybe, I don't know, Corinne, if you can chime in on this at all either, but You know, I think that these are both really unique ideas, and of course that they're Sandy and Amber are coming at it from a gallery perspective. But I think that kind of these techniques could also be like used for historical museums as well. And I was just, you know, we do have like a few people on the chat who are coming from that perspective, and so that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about too. Is I think there would be many interesting ways to adapt these technologies and methods and things to you know, historical museums and as well as galleries.
Yeah, you know, I think both what Amber and Sandy presented was amazing, and I love how they pivoted last year. I think that was the word of 2020, right? Was pivot, that everyone had to switch. And I know one thing I had wondered about too was, you know, if you guys felt that the work you had to put into creating this sort of, you know, changing how you were programming or how you were displaying, exhibiting the art, you know, did you think that that was, you know, more work than you would have put in a typical year? Or, oh, sorry, my phone was ringing. And, you know, if, you know, how that felt work wise, like, did you feel comfortable with the amount of work you had to do, or was it really overwhelming? Because I know for myself, like adjusting on the fly to this last year was like, whoa, I was doing way more work than I did before.
Oh, I'll go first if you don't mind, Amber, and I'll try and also address both questions. Sorry, Em, can you remind me what your question was? Was it how can museums use these approaches?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a specific question, but just kind of bringing it into the mix. But that's kind of what I was going for. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think this kind of calls back to what I had mentioned, that the pandemic was really an opportunity to observe the way that we've always done things and look for ways to do them better and to really change. And I really see augmented reality as providing this way of engaging people across languages and literacy. You know, one thing that I noticed, again, mostly because of my experience teaching at the university, especially working with first-year students, is, you know, we put a lot of effort, and I'm sure in the museum world as well as the gallery world, you put a lot of effort into these didactic texts that are going to explain for people the big ideas about what they're going to see. And I would tell my students that they had to, you know, read it, they had to cite it in their works cited, and about half of them reported back to me that they didn't even see it. And this is a piece of text that's the size of an entire wall. And, you know, I realized that this is sort of, nobody wants to be faced with a wall of text. It's so intimidating. And for some people, it's so distasteful that they literally don't see it. So I think, again, augmented reality, as I said, the art of EVAP, I would really recommend it because it's very easy. You know, you can attach an image and a piece of audio or a video or another image together very simply. And you can make all kinds of objects and experiences, words, images come to life. You know, I like the idea for being able to include multiple languages. I see a lot of promise there. And I think trying to do digital content, yeah, especially because we're trying to do our best with our limited resources. And even though I'm a media artist and I have a background in media arts administration, you know, I definitely hired somebody to just deal with our files, make sure that videos were small enough to be uploaded, but still high quality. You know, as I was developing the project, I thought, like, where will be the friction, the irritation on my part, and feeling like I was wasting my time. You know, there are people out there better qualified to convert video files than I am. Let's hire them. So yeah, I think a lot of times, like, we can be just like running from one digital event to the next. But this, I feel like I actually made a plan to do it in a way that was very reasonable, that I didn't feel overtaxed. The one thing that ended up being, you know, a little bit of feeling overextended was that we had tried to hire someone in Regina to put up our posters in this area, and we just kind of never heard anything back from them. And so, you know, I was like driving around and putting them up, or riding my bike around and putting them up. You know, so I feel like that was you know, ideally we would have had somebody to take on that burden. But it was also great to have OSAC. You know, partnerships are amazing and they can take a lot off your plate. And so OSAC and all of their member galleries and arts councils really assisted us with getting those out there as well.
In regards, I mean, obviously, I completely agree. I think that this is a very translatable. I think in regards to collections, location would be everything in the translation. I don't know if you want to put your priceless heritage collection in in a plexi-lidded box in the woods, but you know, there's so many different options in terms of like using that integrity of like whether it's digital, or if you want to have something that has a tangible feel, like what about a 3D printed, like a replication of something. I mean, you also have the option, we did have one of like our art, something of our art collection, but we put it in a local business where there's always someone there watching it. So they are your built-in security. So that I think absolutely for people who are watching this and being like, oh, well, they're talking about arts. This is very translatable. And I am coming from an art gallery and museum, so I can honestly say that. I also think in regards to time, I think that's an interesting question because time is such an interesting concept in the pandemic. So when I was rolling out this project, like I was the only one working, we weren't open. It was very strange. It was a strange time. It was also really delightful because it was the first time in years and years and years and years and years and years that I just got to curate. I didn't have to I have to do some human resources today, and I have to do a budget today, and I have to do a grant today, and I have to, like, I literally just got to have this really delightful, like, how delicious is this? That you just really got to think about an idea and like write it through, and you're like, oh my, what an like, what a weird time. Everyone's like, this is so awful. I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of great. It's kind of wonderful. I will say though, I realized in coming now back into 21 where I have to figure out how to digitally get something out there for the shows that are in the gallery. That actually is harder because like Sandy said, like, and you were actually commenting on something that Jennifer had said where it's like, yeah, like this time of just kind of doing some sort of homemade version of something, but like that era is gone. So like, yeah, I've had to work with professional videographers, professional editors, just to get like a product, a quality product out there that I can load up onto YouTube, that we can have accessibility. That's the name of the game. And so that is a little bit more, because now you're kind of back into it full time. So it is like a little bit of an extra step. And so it does feel like, because now you're back to, I have to write this grant and I have to do this bunch and now I also need to figure out how to do these things that I haven't really had to do. So like finding who that is. But I will say, reaching out, I think, to your community. And I mean, in large and vast ways, that could be through Moz, through a chat, just being like, hey, do you guys know anyone? Or, I mean, for us, when we were talking as art galleries, like, what are you doing? What's going on? It's a great way to have that connection because everybody will have some sort of knowledge or some sort of something to give you. So, and I say this as a person who often feels like I'm literally in the middle of nowhere. So I feel very isolated. Just to keep that in mind, because, and especially now, like we are all used to Zooming, we're all used to these kind of formats. So use that to your advantage. Hey, do you want to can we meet? Can we have a chat? Can we have, and now you have that opportunity to do that with someone in Saskatoon and you're in Estevan, or there wherever in the world, and you are where you are, and you have that at your disposal.
Yeah, I think you hit that nail right on the head there, Amber, because I think in the last year, you know, some of the opportunities that came out, at least like, you know, hey, I work at the Western Development Museum, and some of the opportunities that we weren't looking at before because we were so busy still doing, you know, what we always did, which was popular. So we didn't, you know, why transition too much? But, you know, so that those opportunities to partner, because you can Zoom and you can talk to other people in the community or in different communities. connecting with different people. And I also really appreciated what you said about, like, you know, starting to work with videographers and all those folks. I think, at least for my work, we felt when the pandemic first started and we were shifting, you know, to virtual, you know, everyone was a little bit forgiving, you know, get your phone out and film something. But at this point, if we want to continue that, it's like videographers and editors and the proper software so that we do it right. But, you know, again, that's opened up new opportunities for us too, that we weren't really exploring, again, because you're so busy, like you said, with your other stuff, you know, your grant writing and everything else.
It sounds as if 2020 was your piloting year to try things, because you could do it on the fly with your phone as your video camera, and then take, as you've said, what you learned. You know, as Sandy said, we learned this, this, and this, and how we do it differently. Now you can start incorporating that. And also that 2020 did push all of us into trying different things, into that change. We all know that change is good, but everybody resists it. And this kind of forced everyone to look at changing how we do things. And the new normal is going to be some kind of hybrid. We're not going to go back to exactly what we did before, but we can use what we learned to make things new and different and better. That's what I'm taking from a kind of the big thing that you're saying from today.
Well, and kind of on that note, like one of the things that I'm interested in seeing how things move forward, you know, of course, with MAS and you know, everything in general, we've seen a huge shift, obviously, towards digital. Like just as an example, with the networks, with, you know, who we do this network knowledge exchange with. And I just wrote about it in our annual report that'll be coming out soon. But last year in May 2020, we had one network out of 11 do a virtual network meeting. This time, May 2021, we had 9 out of 11. So I just found that really interesting. And I hope that that kind of shift has really reduced some of the hesitancy and fear around digital. But I think people are kind of also starting to understand that just because maybe you embrace the digital side of things, that it's not going to devalue the in-person things. It actually like kind of pushes them more into people's consciousness and value and things like that, which is kind of neat.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think, yes, pivot is a word, hybrid is a word. I think, and really what it's all coming back to in a time where we've also really started thinking of like social justice. Accessibility is the name of the game, and digital is absolutely part of that. But I think just reworking the framework, and I think that that's something that Sandy had brought up, because yeah, you do have an opportunity to really bust it out, and to you have permission almost to do something, which I don't know why we didn't think we had permission before. Maybe it was because it's popular, maybe because we were so invested in like numbers, whatever that was that we were really focused on. And so this has really opened up all of opportunities. And I think it's exciting because you see, I have so much more awareness of what all the different institutions are doing across Saskatchewan that I can honestly say I didn't have 2 years ago, which is quite lovely.
Yeah, agreed. I know Sarah had given us a question, Amber, and I wanted to touch on it. And it was about how could museums connect with artists? And when we talk about our projects, obviously connecting with artists is what we do as galleries, but partnerships are what made both of our initiatives successful. you know, and that is a huge part of the way that I work. I was really interested, Amber, to hear about the ceramicist you're working with who's interested in brick making. I might have mentioned to you that we're doing a project, 2 summer residency with artists who are investigating digging and holes. And digging for clay is, you know, one of the things they're interested in, but I've connected them with curators of vertebrate biology, people who work on government construction projects like dredging the lake, indigenous knowledge keepers. So this whole archaeologists, this whole swath of people who are, you know, doing digging, and what those different meanings are. And those, you know, every partnership like that is going to create so much more of a rich experience. And then also, you know, being responsive and creating opportunities for people not just to observe, but to participate. That's really important to the way I work as well. You know, I think that if museums want to connect with artists, like we as galleries, we want to connect with museums and other organizations in our community.
Absolutely. If you already have a sister institution in your community, that's just naturally already built in for you. Now, the challenge for some of the smaller rural places is you might not have that. But like as I said, we're in an era now where we have the ability to have access to each other, even if we're not in the same communities. And I think just reaching out, if you're not sure of an artist in your community or you want to know more, like maybe reach out to an OSAC, reach out to a organization of Saskatchewan Arts Councils. Reach out to some of these kind of motherboards, like Moz is another one. Like it's, you know, using that information, kind of that hive mind, if you will. So yeah, definitely.
What a fantastic almost hour of chatting we've had.
Sandy and I were laughing earlier because we were like, we will never have a problem talking. We love to talk.
We both love to talk.
So much. Thank you so much for having me here today. It has been delightful.
I'm not going to say anything, Amber. I'm not going to say anything.
I know.
But it sparked so many ideas in my brain of, oh, well, we could, you know, things that that you've spoken about, the partnerships and working with people you might not have thought about working with previously, but now, and I'm thinking of visual artists, but I'm also thinking of performing artists, that, you know, integrating different kinds of things in a one-off. The one thing that I did wonder about, that I have been wondering about with all of the different kinds of virtual activities that museums and galleries are doing, and it kind of goes to what was asked before about the amount of work that it takes, is the amount of money that needs to be invested in it, and how in the future museums and galleries will be able to somehow monetize it without making it inaccessible. And that's, I know, a conundrum that everyone is facing and no one has an answer, but it's something that is in my head because I know how much work you're all doing to and over the course of the last year have been doing to ensure that you're continuing to engage with audiences. But I also know that behind the scenes, that's a cost. So I'm just putting that out there as it's a concern.
I can jump in. So it's Sandy. Yes, you know, there's lots of work that goes into delivering digital content, and it can be a heavy workload if you are, as Amber had mentioned, like, you know, we have in-person exhibitions now, we're supporting them through online activities, but, you know, there's a temptation for us to always be adding more and more and more. I worked at the Mackenzie Art Gallery for a while, and we were trying to start something called a stop doing list. And the problem with the stop doing list is nothing ever got put on the stop doing list. and I think that you know, as nonprofit organizations serving our community, we're often very reticent to put something on our stop doing list. And at the same time, I appreciate, Wendy, that, you know, we're also very reticent to charge for things, especially if like admission to our bricks and mortar location is free. You know, even though there are costs associated with delivering content, it's hard to be putting up barriers when we feel like we want to be removing them. I know the Art Gallery of Regina partnered, you know, we asked the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery to partner with us on a grant application to the Canada Council's Digital Now Fund that will provide us, hopefully, with money to have videographers and editors and professional platforms to distribute digital content, to produce and distribute digital content. And one of the questions they asked us was, how do we plan to monetize? And we just said, you know, our admission to our spaces is free. We believe strongly in this value. We don't plan to monetize it. But I think that that's an important thing to think about. You know, what are the ethics that we may not be aware of on the surface of monetizing or keeping things free?
Yes, very similar. We're a free museum and art gallery, Estevan Art Gallery and Museum. So with this, we didn't have to worry about that notion of it necessarily making money, but I do understand, because there's also that back end of like, where are you getting the money then? And like, this is where this comes into that I guess those grants, if you know, especially if you don't necessarily have fine arts funding established. And like I worked with the city, and I actually asked them for a Carfax. Like, I went to them and wrote a grant and said I'd like to have the artist fee for my summer edition of this and also the winter edition, and they gave me funding both times for it. Yeah, well, anyways, that's we won't go there, but it's finding out what those resources are in your community. Affinity, the banking, they usually have some sort of community grant in the different communities. They're a great one. I wrote them and we got plinths, and we actually did this version in the schools during this year. So I think that there are opportunities there if you can actually do a charge as a way to compensate. I just will say, whatever you're doing digitally, whoever you're working with, I do think keep in mind that there should be some sort of pay for them for respecting that work, whether it's the videographer or the person speaking, and bringing some sort of expertise to it. So just maybe to keep that in mind for people thinking about these projects.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was, you know, where do you look for those funds? And I think you're right, Amber, you have to look in as many different places as you can. And I know now that for museums, the latest federal budget does have some funding for digitization, for this kind of digitization, grants through the Museum Assistance Program. So that's kind of where I think the museums can start looking. And I think if there's enough uptake, that may become more permanent, perhaps, if we keep working at it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, we're at the end of our time for our chat. So I won't keep everybody, and I do thank those who joined for coming and having the conversation. And it was really interesting to have both of you guys together kind of talk about these projects in a dialogue. So thank you for your time. Thank you for doing that. And yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great chat. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks.